White Christmas. This film's production was delayed for a couple of years, and this turned out to be a rather good thing because when it was finally shot in 1954, it was the first film ever shot in Vistavision. And so if you're wondering why the image quality on this 4K disc is so good as it is, it's because it is Vistavision. I know I've explained the Vistavision process before, and that was for the 4K release of the Ten Commandments, 1956 I believe, and by the time of the Ten Commandments, Mitchell Cameras had developed a true Vistavision camera. I'll come on to that a little later, but I thought I'd try and show the film format itself. Now, conventional 35mm, if you can see the frames there, is a vertical process, and what happens with Vistavision is for sprockets high 35mm. With Vistavision, when it goes through the camera, the film is twisted to go through horizontally, and then it shoots 8 perforations across, so you have a much wider image. Now, this was something that I think was utilised on a bigger scale with 70mm film by IMAX when they developed the 1570 process, which, if you think Vistavision is big, well, IMAX, you can just see, compare frames of IMAX to 2 frames of 35mm, but nevertheless, this is still a large film format and is still superior to just about anything that appears on video today. There have possibly been a couple of exceptions that can rival something shot on Vistavision, maybe Top Gun Maverick, Le Mans 66 perhaps. I don't think so really, but there's elements of things shot on video that are getting up there now with the larger film formats, but in the main I think they still struggle to rival standard 35mm, but I prefer the natural look of film that's just so inherent in the process. But that's what Vistavision is. Now, the Projected Picture Trust ran an excellent article in their Rewind magazine to members earlier this year, spring 2024. This is Nigel Wooland with the PPT's Vistavision projector, which they obtained recently. There aren't many of these in the world. I know Steven Spielberg got one some time ago, but these are a rare thing because Vistavision was never intended to be a releasing format. It was intended to produce superior quality standard 35mm prints, and that was why I refer to some things, some 4K releases, some films as the Vistavision effect, because that larger film format gives a better image when you start, which means the end product, whatever you shrink it down to, has superior quality. And in fact, that's exactly what has happened with this 4K release of White Christmas. It's got that superior imagery to start with, and it all carries through and shrinks down to the end product, whatever that format is, and that's the case with a new 4K release. Now, Dion Hansen's article is suitably short, but with enough detail, and that's exactly what you want. There were some 1920s cameras that were experimenting with colour, using the exposure of 2 frames simultaneously, using 2 different colour filters to give a sort of pseudo colour effect, and I don't know much about those cameras, but I think it was quite effective. Now, if you think about it, you turn that camera on its side, you remove the division between the 2 frames, you've got an 8 sprocket wide horizontal 35mm filming process. And they got 2 of these cameras, they put a standard 35mm lens from stills cameras on them, and they had the first Vistavision. So there are quite a few soft focus shots in White Christmas, and could it be because of the stills camera 35mm lenses? They were just getting to grips with these cameras, they weren't really up to the process at the time, because it's interesting that shortly after that Mitchell Cameras did develop the true Vistavision camera, and then the shoots seemed to be more successful after that. Just look at all the Hitchcock 4K releases where he shot in Vistavision, probably most notably recently North by Northwest. But that is why White Christmas looks as good as it does. Yes, there are those soft focus shots and also quite a few fades within White Christmas, and that means optical effects to fade one scene into the next. That obviously results in some image degradation, which is noticeable on screen, but I suppose the bigger the screen you're looking at, the more obvious it is. So there's nothing to worry about there. The image quality is still overall excellent, and if you're in any doubts about whether or not you should purchase this 4K White Christmas, then I can't recommend it highly enough. It's not the best we've seen out of Vistavision, I don't think. Spartacus was Technirama, but that was Vistavision with a 1.5 squeeze lens on it. I think that one is the best I've seen so far, but I've still got to get into all those Hitchcock releases. They're probably superior image quality to White Christmas, but nevertheless they're all still excellent. The sound is very good too. It's DTS 5.1 HD as the default, but you have got the original mono sound on here via a menu option. I flicked over to the mono sound about halfway through the film and I enjoyed it just as much as the 5.1. I couldn't really notice any difference because I was so focused on the screen and the overall excellent quality of everything that was hitting my senses that I would say either soundtrack is going to be highly enjoyable however you watch White Christmas. The Blu-ray in this pack is also of excellent quality. This was done in 2010, but I have to say, after you've watched the 4K, you put the Blu-ray on, there's no contest. This just hasn't got the natural colour that the 4K has, which is so much more filmic as a result. In isolation, as usual, you think you wouldn't need anything more than the Blu-ray of White Christmas, but the 4K is just so superior, there really is no contest. All the extras are just on the Blu-ray. I haven't looked at any of them yet. Don't know when I'll find the time to go through those, but I think they were all on previous DVD releases, may even have been on a special edition Laserdisc, I don't know. But anyway, whatever. Rosemary Clooner appears as an older lady in this, so I expect that's interesting. I expect the whole lot are interesting because it's an interesting film. I'm not usually into musicals, but this is one I've always rather liked, or I've liked for a long time, simply because years ago when my grandmother was alive, my wife and I, for a Christmas present, we got her a VHS, and she loved having that VHS. She was in a sheltered home at the time. She had her own flat within this sheltered home. It was rather lovely, and I think it was a Friday evening, all the residents would get together and watch a video. So we got a White Christmas, and here is that VHS. So we've watched this quite a few times since. The packaging of these was actually rather good when you consider great hunk of plastic. This is a pan and scanned, but interestingly comes with hi-fi stereo sound, which White Christmas was mono, so presumably there was an earlier stereo mix of it, or maybe it's just it comes out of both channels on the VHS. I don't really know. I've never really taken much notice of that. I've just enjoyed it. But there's some lovely scenes in here. The characters are lovely. The songs are lovely. I'm not usually into musicals, as I say, but I've rather got into all the musical tracks in here, and Vera, Ellen's dancing in particular. She is absolutely fantastic. You look at how she does that with her dancing partner, and how on earth does anyone actually move like that and not break limbs or pull muscles, whatever. But anyway, she's amazing in it. I think the whole cast is, and a few particularly lovely scenes, and one line in particular I love, when Kaye says that we wouldn't have been any good as generals, and the general replies, you weren't any good as privates. I just love that sort of humour. So I would recommend this one. Maybe not if you're not into musicals, but as I said, I've got into it. Now, in terms of extras, I think there's one extra that's not on here because it was only done recently, and it's actually the Perth Damage podcast, which I was put onto recently. And it's the young lady is talking about the restoration of White Christmas in there. Was actually one of those overseeing it, might have been the full supervisor, I'm not sure, but I think it's a husband and wife team. They have a discussion about White Christmas. I'll put a link to it in the description below, and it really is worth watching and listening to. So much detail about how this fabulous 4K came about, and if I was Paramount, I'd get that on here as an extra for the next special edition release, which, as this one's the 70th, maybe it'd be the 100th, who knows. But I think that is a very good video and will make a very nice extra on Irving Berlin's White Christmas, directed by Michael Curtiz, I should add. Right, I think that brings us to the end. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'm encouraged to carry on creating content like this. Until the next video, Bye bye for now.